Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In this video I'd like to look at a Holy Grail trade setup that's unfolded this morning on the 5-minute chart of the DAX. For this I'll use our MTPRT add-ons for NinjaTrader 7. So the setup I'm looking at here is this TS3 buy. Yes, for standard traders it was against a red STF. However, most Holy Grail trade setups are against the STF because they are always the initial correction in a new trend. So what do we look for to start with? Well, to start with, we go to the higher time frame. We always start on the higher time frame and look back at the initial rally, and that's this little rally here, starting off this pivot back here, which was at 4:15 New York time. Now we look to see whether this is a major support or resistance, and normally we use our DP levels from this, but in this case, can you see how it was at the same price level as a prior level a few days ago? We know from standard technical analysis that prior highs and lows can also form areas of support. So here we'd say that this was probably a good support zone on the 15-minute chart. The market then made a rally up. It then made an initial correction, and if I look at this the correction on this 15-minute chart by using our Elliott wave intermediate, you can see that it was a wave 1 and a wave 2. So when we come back to the 5-minute chart, you'll see that this area here we considered a large degree wave 2. After a wave 2, if I come up to this pivot here that's just unfolded, we normally expect the market to unfold as a strong wave 3, and that's exactly what happened, with the high here at 8:45 New York time coming in right at the typical wave 3 WPT. So let's go back to the 5-minute chart and see what difference that makes for our particular setup. So as we've seen, this was a major low. We now assume that the initial rally off that low is a wave 1. We then also assume that the initial correction, which unfolded as an ABC into this TS3 buy setup, is going to be a wave 2. So when I put the analysis on here, we're not aiming for the first target, which is the minimum wave C, which is our normal first target. We're actually aiming for the third target, which, as you can see here, is the typical wave 3, and this is indeed where the market actually went. So if I put the risk reward on in and around this setup up to the typical wave 3 WPT, you can see that this was a 10R profit. In other words, this trade here had a profit of approximately 10 times the initial risk. Remember, we use correct position sizing in MTPredictor, so for this initial risk here we were allowed to take two contracts to keep the initial risk under 2% of our sample 20,000 euro account, and as you can see that meant risking 275 euros. But the point being is, because this is a wave 2, we're anticipating a strong wave 3, and that allowed us to then not come out of our first target but look to come up to our second target. And please remember, these were actually on the chart before the market got there. So if I add some space in on here, some white space here, and I take the chart back to the initial setup, which was here, you can see rather than aiming for the initial target here, we could actually say in advance we actually want to come out at, or we want to aim for, this target up here. Whoops, if I get that right. I need 3 mouse clicks. Initial target up here for plus 10.6R. So we knew that this was our target before the market got there, and as you can see, that's exactly what happened. The market got up there before backing off. Also, from another MTPredictor analysis technique, for the more advanced MTPredictors among you, you remember that I teach that we look at the last swing into the high or low. This is the last swing down into this low, so we come back to the previous high, which is here. We put our decision point on from this level, and this also gives us a target for the initial rally, or the rally off this low. And as you can see, coincidentally, it was also in the area of this typical wave 3 WPT. So this gave us 2 reasons why the market would go to this target, and as such gave you a reason on this particular setup again to adjust your risk reward from the first target, which was here, up to the second target, sorry, the third target, which was the typical wave 3 WPT. And that in essence is our Holy Grail trade setup. And if I go back to the 15-minute chart, you can see this in more detail, where what we're looking for, if I put the Elliott wave pattern on here, we're looking for a setup in here, which is a wave 2, as you can see that's what it's labelled, to go up to the typical wave 3 WPT. And when I go back to the 5-minute chart again, you can see that is exactly what we had. Whoops, I just put the analysis on. Sorry, my mouse is a little bit funny here. If I put the analysis on, then adjust the risk reward, go up to the typical wave 3 WPT. That's exactly what we had, and as you can see the end result was approximately 10R. And that's the beauty of these Holy Grail trade setups, is because we're trading the wave 3, which is typically the strongest and longest of any completed 5-wave Elliott wave sequence, the profits are very, very large in relation to the initial risks. And this is why I call it the Holy Grail trade setup, because I believe it's the best trade setup you can find because of the profit potential in terms of the initial risk. And this is the main advanced setup that we teach at MTPredictor. And as you can see in MTPredictor and the RT add-ons for NinjaTrader, you have all the tools at your disposal to be able to uncover these Holy Grail trade setups.